Okay, so welcome to today's class. So before we start our new unit, unit number 4, okay, so let me see, or I'll show you in syllabus what you have completed at unit number 3. So in unit number 3, okay, so we have started learning introduction to data persistence schemes. Okay, so we introduction to data persistence schemes were discussed, and after that we started learning the shared preferences. Okay, so what are the types we seen here in this introduction, and what are the types? Everything we have seen in this introduction part. After that, we have started learning shared preferences. Here is one of the type, and the second one is file handling is the second method or second type I can say, and third one is managing data using SQLite database. Okay, so we have discussed all these three. If I'm going to share, if I'm going to have the more it is the secured content for a particular application, so that will be stored inside the internal memory of the particular application folder. So that I'll call it a shared preferences, like username, password, or some contacts, something which is more essentially needed and that has to be secured. That we call it, that we store it in shared preferences. Okay, and the second one we discussed relating the file handling. Okay, so file handling can be of any content. Okay, so how to read and write the content from the file. Okay, so that we have seen. And third one, we started learning managing data using SQLite databases. So you all know SQL database is an inbuilt or an embedded database which is available inside the Android OS itself. Okay, so with the help of this SQL database, I can store the data in structured format, that is rows and column. Okay, so that we have discussed, and how to read and write the data from a database. All this we discussed under managing data using SQLite databases. How to have a connectivity once we have connected. Okay, here we don't have any connectivity problem. Directly we can design the front end with an XML, and then we can code, or we can call for button click event or read event, something like that. We can do it, and then we can fetch the data from the SQL. It is not like other application. I said you like Windows application. I need to configure it. Okay, by using the username, password, admin name and password. I need to set some interfaces to make that work, database to work. Here we don't have that many issues. Directly we can start working. Okay, so that we have discussed, and then we also seen the content providers. Okay, so what is meant by content provider we've seen, and then we discussed this content provider is categorized into two types. So first one is inbuilt content provider. Android inbuilt content provider is the first one, and the second one is user content provider. If the user want to create their own content provider, it is possible in Android. So that we've seen in our last class, and in previous class we have seen Android inbuilt content provider. There are some inbuilt providers. Example we have considered as an library. Sorry, it is not library. It is a dictionary. We have taken an example as a dictionary, inbuilt dictionary from different languages, and then we formed as a table. Okay, the words which are not in the dictionary, but it is frequently used in such a way. We have taken the words, and that we have analyzed how to read and write the words which are not in the dictionary, but most frequently used. Okay, so that it's seen as an example under Android inbuilt content provider. And then we say, and then by last class we have discussed the user content providers. Okay, user content providers. You have an application, and you think, or you decided to transfer content, or you feel that our content will be used by other application in such a way that, okay, what you need to do, you need to create a content provider for your application. Only by having that content provider, what other application can do. Okay, what other application can use your content provider. Okay, with the help of your content provider in your application, they can read and write the data from your application. So this is the way in which a user content provider has to be created. Okay, so for that I have shown an example as a contacts. Okay, it is not that only the company has to provide a context. You can also create your own contact application like Truecaller. The best example I can say is a Truecaller, because many people know. when you say Truecaller, what happens? You can do many things in that Truecaller. So in that case, when you want to read something, who is that person, or something has to be shared, okay, their location, some money has to be transmitted, or WhatsApp application you can take. In WhatsApp application also you have the contacts. Okay, you can store your contacts in WhatsApp or in your local contacts you can have, or in Google contacts or SIM or phone contact, like that you can say many things. Okay, so for this definitely you need to have a content provider, and for that what is required we discussed in last class, and then I shown you a simple demo for the user content provider. So all these are the contents we have in unit number 3. Okay, so if I talk about unit number 3, it fully talks about the data part, the data portion. Okay, how the data can be saved and what are the ways in which the data can be saved and the data can be retrieved. Okay, if I want to retrieve the data from other content, what is needed, or if I'm going to have the content, or if I'm going to request the data from inbuilt content provider, so how it has to be retrieved and it has to be used. So all these we see in unit number 3. Okay, and now we are moving into unit number 4 with this introduction. Okay, so here we are going to talk about the services. Here we are going to talk about the services. So whenever I say we are going to talk about the services, we talk about the life cycle of Android. Okay, life cycle. So that will be a major role in that. Okay, so in this, what we're going to discuss, we are going to have an introduction of services and the local services, the remote services, and the binding the services. Okay, all this we are going to discuss with some examples, and the communication between the service activity and the intent services, multi-threading handlers. Okay, because we are going to deal with software and hardware. So multi-threading can happen in hardware as well as software services. So how this can be done? We have a thread level parallelism. We can have the hardware also. Okay, both in hardware as well as in software we have the multi-threading. So we'll discuss all those. Okay, but here we are not focusing on hardware, we work with related to software. So we work with multi-threading handlers, how it can be handled, and synchronous task okay, and then Android network programming. Okay, so that is another separate topic where we are going to discuss HTTP URL connection. Okay, when we say it is a network programming, you are going to connect over the network or internet with the help of this HTTP URL dot connection, and how it is going to communicate over the internet. Okay, and to make this happen, we need a connecting to a REST-based and a SOAP-based web services. Okay, so definitely we need a web services. So what we do, we have a REST-based and SOAP-based web services. We take it. Okay, so all these are the web services by which we are going to communicate, send and receive our data, send and receive the requested data from the client between the server. Okay, either it can be username, password, or you can order something in Amazon, Flipkart, whatever it is. It's a REST-based, SOAP-based web services. Okay, and next one is broadcasting. Okay, broadcast, local broadcast manager, dynamic broadcast receiver. So we are going to discuss something about the broadcasting. Okay, and then the system broadcast, and then pending intent notifications. All this the contents which we are going to learn in unit number 4, and then telephony manager, sending SMS and making calls. So all these are the contents we have it in unit number 4. Okay, so I will upload the unit 3 PPT in the GCR once it is complete. I have completed. I'll just see if there is any changes or modification required. If there is something required, I'll add it and then I'll upload. Otherwise, I'll share all my entire screen. Okay. So now today's class we are going to share the unit number 4. That is, we are going to start with the services and introduction to services. Okay. I think only I can cover up to that much, services and introduction to services. Okay, so we'll start our session today. So first one is Android services. So we'll go with the definition for Android services. A service is an application component that can perform a long running operations in the background. Okay, that can perform a long running operation in background. So it does not provide a user interface. Okay, but you don't have any user and UI. Okay, so once started, a service may continue running for some time, even after the user switches to another application. Okay, I can't suddenly interrupt my services. Okay, so it will take some time to stop at the background. So it will what happens automatically the currently running services, or I can say the foreground services, will be taken into background. Only then it will get stopped. I can't, even though you close the window immediately, you simply click the close window immediately. What happens? It the other closing operations has to be done at the background only. Okay, so this is the main point which we need to consider here. Additionally, a component can bind to a service to interact with, okay, and even perform inter-process communication. You can also perform some inter-process communication also. Okay, and for example, like what we can say, a service can handle a network transaction. Okay, network transaction can be anything. It can be a file exchange, or it can be some content, or it can be some amount transfer. It can be anything, some network transaction, or it can say play musics, like perform file IO, file input output, or interact with the content provider from the background. Okay, so all these are some of the examples which I can say for Android services. Okay, so when you say it is a playing the music, you can't. It is not that always you'll be having your foreground application as a music player. Simply what you do, either you convert that as a wizard. In that wizard, you will simply give play automatically. It is going to play at the background. Okay, it is going to play as a background, and that will be handled by a separate thread. Okay, that will be handled by a separate thread, and the other threads will be performing other operations. Okay, so that is what a simple example for a service is. Just one example I said is a music or network transaction. It can be many things, some downloading. Network transaction is not only downloading, there are many things. But what obviously we say is network transactions, download, we can say download. Okay, like this one example I can say. Okay, and performing file operations, file IO operations, like file sharing, I can say, or how you say, best example, what I can say, this Google application, Google Meet, it is also one of the network sharing performance, sharing of files. Okay, I share a file through the particular interface. With the help of this interface, I'm going to share I'm going to share you a particular file. Okay, so all these are individual services. Okay, sometimes it may run at the foreground, sometimes it may run at the background also. Okay, now actually I'm sharing the file with the help of the application. Okay, the application is the, you know that we have connected a GCR. Okay, this Google Classroom, that is the Google Meet. Okay, yeah, that Google Meet is a web application, and the file which I'm showing is another application. So this file, that is the PPT presentation which I'm projecting, that is captured by your Google Meet, and then Google Meet broadcast it to everybody. It broadcasts it to everybody. Okay, so that application is running at the background. It is not that it's not running now. Actually PPT is at the foreground. The PowerPoint presentation which I'm showing is at the foreground, but in the background what is happening, the Google Meet is running at the background. I call that as services. How I say a music player. Okay, like that I can say the Google Meet is one of the services. Actually it is not that only which is at the foreground is running. Okay, even which is at the running at the back also, I'll call it as services. Okay, or at the background, the services which are running at the background also I call it as services. Okay, so it can be foreground services or background services, it can be anything. Simply call it as services. Okay, and this can be one example I can say. Okay, so here you have a main process. What I can say is like okay, here you have a main process. What you are going to do in this, you are going to perform the download activity. Okay, so you are requesting call method for download image. You are calling a method to download the image which is at the background process. Here it is the background process. So here you have the local binder class, that is it will help you to download the image. So you are calling a method called download image. So what happens, it will be downloading with the help of threads. We will have multiple threads. Okay, so once this is initiated, download image is initiated, return results to the caller. With the help of this download image, what it will happen? In this page, what image is available? For example, here enter URL is given. Enter URL is given. Some URL with the extension .png is been given. So this image has to be downloaded. This image has to be downloaded, and that downloader there will be sent to your particular folder, download folder. Okay, so to this to happen, you have a binder IPC mechanism. As we said that we will also perform inter-process communication. I said that IPC. Okay, so that is what I said. Okay, additionally, a component can bind to a service to interact with and even perform inter-process communication. I said you right. It will perform inter-process communication. So this is what the exact meaning. Okay, so binding IPC mechanism. So this IPC mechanism is happening with the help of the Linux kernel. So this is the diagram which I have shown you in the unit number 1. Okay, I hope you remember this. Okay, I hope you remember this. This Linux kernel is the diagram which I shown when I was discussing with the unit number 1. Okay, so in this unit number 1, we have seen all these are the drivers or adapters, we can say. Driver and adapter both are the same. So we have a binder inter-process communication driver or an adapter. With the help of this particular adapter, what we are going to do? We are going to make our process to run at the background or somewhere in the foreground also. Okay, so this is a simple example to understand what a service is and how a service can be initiated, and what is the core fundamental component needed in order to make this download process. The example here I am showing it is a download process. You can take music also. You can take music also. Okay, like display, camera, Bluetooth, all these are will be running at the background, right? Power management. There are many things you can say. I'm not only talking about the background service. Generally talking about a service. Either it can be a foreground service or it can be a background service. If you are going to open my Wi-Fi, always my Wi-Fi page, it will be always at the front page. If I move that to back, it will be running at the back end. But Wi-Fi will be turned on always. Wi-Fi will be turned on always. Okay. Similarly, power management. When I turn on the power management, what happens? I can turn on my power management and I can work with any application. And I can work with any application. So you will set some power management settings. So if my application is not, it is idle for more than 2 to 3 minutes, automatically you need to make it as idle. So you should not allow to communicate over the internet. Like that, you can set say many settings for the power management. Like that, all these are all the kernel parts. Okay, with the help of this only, we are going to communicate between one application, okay, to another over the internet or either locally. Okay, anyhow, we are going to do it. So this is a simple example where you can find multiple meanings for the services. Okay, so this is what services basic introduction, and I have shown you one example for a services. Okay, how the main process communicating. Okay, and making the things done with help of kernel. Now here we call it as drivers. Drivers, or we can call it as adapters. Okay, so this is the basic introduction for services. And the next one comes the types of services. What are the different types of services that are available, or how it can be handled? Either it can handle foreground, background, and third one is bound. There are 3 different types of services are available: foreground services, background services, and then third one is bound services. Okay, so a foreground services perform some operation that is noticeable to the user. Okay, when I'm performing at the foreground, so if I'm moving my cursor, it is noticeable. But if it is running at the background, I can't notice. I can highlight something; it's noticeable to the user. It is whatever you do, it is noticed by the user who are viewing. Now, what I do with the help of the Google Meet, just I broadcast my presentation. You all view my presentation. So whatever I do here, that is being noticed by you all people there. So now it is, since it is at the foreground, whatever actions I perform, that is viewed by you. Okay, if it is running at the background, you are not going to do anything. Just only you can notice that some application is running at the background. Only if you change that from background to foreground, you can notice the actions or operation which is performed in the particular application. For example, an audio app should use a foreground service to play on a audio track. Okay, so foreground
So,
services. Yes.
so now you're presenting this screen, right? So is this foreground or Google Meet is your foreground?
Now this is at my foreground and Google Meet will be at the background end. Because the which is visible to
Okay.
me, that I'll call it as a foreground. But that is also running. The Google Meet is also running. So now it will be at my background, but it is still running. Because only with the help of that, I can broadcast my presentation now. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So the foreground services must display a notification. Okay. So foreground services continue running even when the user is not interacting with the application because it is at the foreground. Okay, they continue running even when the user is not interacting with the application. But even though we have some time limit for our security purposes and other, that is different. But the concept is it will be running. Okay, for example, if I take the Gmail or like let's take a banking application, okay, they will have their own time limit for the security purpose. If you open the page, okay, with your username and password, it will be open. You can view our banking page. But due to security reason, they will say, like, if you are ideal for 5 minutes, automatically it has to sign out. But it will be ideal. But it will be ideal. Okay, because of the security issues, they may do something which is additional. Okay, even though it is foreground, it will be running. But as of now, due to the security parameter, something will get added to the current application so that it is disconnected from the particular service. That's it. That is from your account, it has been logged off. But still, it is in foreground. It is contacting with the application, web application, or the web services, or a server of a particular bank because you have logged into a particular SBI bank or IOB bank or some bank. Okay, so that is nothing but we have a foreground services. And when you use the foreground services, you must display a notification so that the user can actively aware that the service is running. Okay, so that is what I said you right. We need to send some notification since the service is running. I said you right, like a log off notification. If you are just idle, I opened it, but I'm not doing anything. So we'll have some notifications. Okay. So this notification cannot be displayed unless the service is either stopped or removed from the foreground. Okay. So this was the basic introduction for a foreground. Just we are talking about a foreground application. So next we'll talk about the background application. So this is a simple example what I can say for the foreground application. So here is a foreground services application. And there is an example for a background application, like how I said for download all these. This is just an example I can show for background application. So your background services perform an operation that is not directly notified by the user. Okay, if I say download, it is not directly notified by the user. Once it is downloaded, it will show only if you go there and see, it will be shown it is downloaded, one file downloader or two file downloader, like that. Okay, like that. Music also, whatever you do at the background, if I'm going to play a music, only if you go to the particular background application, you could see how much amount of time is still remaining or how much amount of time is played for a particular music. Everything you can see. Okay, so that we call it as a background services. Okay, and for example, if an app used by a uses a service to compact storage, that could usually be a background services. Okay, for example, if an app uses a service to compact its storage, it could usually be a background service. Okay, so this is one example, or the example which I shown here. There are many examples. One is for download. Okay, debugging connector, USB debugging connector. All these are running at the background, and then USB charging to this device. All these are some of the example which I can say that is running at the background. One is charging, one is debugging, another one is download. All these I can say as the background services. Okay. And we have seen two types. First one is foreground we've seen, and second one background. And third one we are going to deal about the bound services. Okay, so a services is bound and an application component binds it by calling the bind services. So if I want to use an application to get bounded, what I'm going to do, I'm going to call a bind service method. Okay, so a bind service offers a client service interface that allows component to interact with the service, send request, receive result, and even do across process with interprocess communication. Because whenever we are connecting with a client server model or an interface, definitely we need to bind. Only then it will get connected. Okay, when with the help of the bind service, only what we are going to do, you will have a client side application. For example, now we are opening an Gmail. Okay, if you open www.gmail.com, you will have only the a client side application. What should be done? By giving the username and password, when you give sign in, what happened? Now the binding has to establish. Binding is nothing but a connection has to be established to the Google Cloud. How the connection will be established? It will check for the authenticity, whether your username and password is exists and username is correct. Everything it will be authenticated. Okay. Upon that, only a connection will get established between your Gmail and the Google server. So for that, we need to have bind services. Only then what I can do, I can interact with the services which are available in the server. And then I can send requests, receive results upon the binding the particular application from my client to the server. Okay, so if I want to do such things, that is done only with the help of an inter-process communication. Otherwise, it is not possible. Okay, so that we go for binding the service or bound services. So that is the third one, foreground, background, and then third one would be the bound services. Okay, and the bound services runs only as long as another application component is bound to it. And the multiple components too can be bind to a service at once, but when all of them unbind, the service will get destroyed. It means that just if I sign out, what happens? When I sign out, automatically unbind happens, and then automatically the service will get destroyed. But you have internet connectivity, you have a web services, everything will be there. Only that connection will get disconnected. That's it. You will in your browser, if I sign out, what happens? That web services is available. That is the client side, the Gmail web page you can view. You can view, still it is open. You have an internet connectivity, everything is okay. But thing is, it is getting disconnected only from the Gmail server. That's it. Okay, so that we call it as destroyed. It is not, it's entirely uninstalled or something else. We have disconnected the service from the server part alone. So that we call it as destroyed or unbind services. Okay, so these are the three things that we need to know basically for a service to happen. Okay, and choosing between a service and a thread. So a service is simply a component that can run in the background. Okay, even at the foreground, but basically we say it is only application we can view at the foreground, but services always will run at the background. Okay, even when user is not interacting with your application. So you should create a service only if that is what you need. Okay, and you must perform your work outside of your main thread, but only a user is interfacing with your application. So you should instead create a new thread in context to another application deployment. Okay, application component deployment. Okay, and for this, what I can say as an example is, if you want to play some music, but only for your activities running, you might create a thread called on create. Okay, start running it on start stop services. Okay, so if you want to play some music, what we can do while your activity is running? So that is your music player is running. What we can do? That is, it is at the foreground. What we can do? Okay, for a particular music, one thread will be assigned. Either that thread is using the software. Using that software, that thread is connected to your hardware, and then what happens? It shows that it is running at the foreground, and you might create a thread. Okay, using the help of on create method. That is, now this is happening with the help of software. So when I say on create method, what happens? Okay, a thread will get initiated with help of on create. Okay, and start running with help of on start method. Okay, it will start running with help of on start method, and stop happens with help of on stop. Okay, all these will be affecting the particular thread, and that thread will be connecting to a particular application called music. So likewise, if I'm going to have another thing, another service, okay, that service is nothing but it can be an application. So here we taken a service as music. Like Gmail is a one service. Okay, WhatsApp is another service. So that service will be connecting to a particular service, the particular thread, and what we can do with the help of that particular thread, we can make my application to open, close, start, pass, whatever you want, we can do. Okay, so that is what the choosing between the service and the thread. What you want a particular application to be done. I want it to get logged off and disconnected from the internet. I want to pass. Okay, so what you want to do, that is done with the help of the particular thread. So that is what choosing the services between the thread as well as the service. Okay, so just we'll go for the programming part. I have some coding here. I will show that also. So with the help of that, you will understand what exactly with this methods will be doing. And the basic is to create a service that you must create a subclass of a service or use one of the existing subclasses. Okay. So in your implementation, you must provide some callback method to handle the key aspect of a service lifecycle. So this service lifecycle we have studied at unit number 1 itself. Okay. And I'll show again the same diagram. Okay. For our understanding. In the next coming slides, we have the life cycle diagram. In that case, I'll show you that, but now not to the next slide. Okay, and provide a mechanism that allows the component to bind to the services if appropriate. Okay, so you know the life cycle of how and connectivity happens from the on create. Okay, from the create, it will go to stage by stage because your application can be at any stage. Either it may be already open or you are going to open it for the first time. Okay, there are many stages, right? It can be running at the background, or you may pause it, or it may be a resume state. It can be at any state. It can be. So based upon that, what we are going to do, we are going to start from the particular point, either from the start, or it can be at the middle, or it can be at the end. Like SI also, it can be anywhere. Okay. So these are the most important callback method that you should override. So when you're going to program it, definitely you need to override all these methods. So to start with, the first method would be onStart command. OnStart command is the first one that we are going to learn. Okay, how to make an application. Okay, even it can be at any place. I said any place is nothing, but it can be any condition. We are going to open it for the first time, or you have opened it but still it is running at the background. Okay, if you want to make it at the foreground, and in that foreground what it is, you are past the activity, or now it is moving it to resume state, or you are going to stop that activity, whatever it can be. Okay, so all things we are going to discuss for that, what all the individual methods are available and how these methods will help us to make an application to run either at the foreground or at the background. So all these we are going to discuss. So first, to start with onStart command. So the system invokes this method by calling the start services when another component requests that the service to be started. Okay, and when this method executes, the service is started and can run in the background indefinitely. Okay, so when this method executes, the service is started and you can run in background indefinitely. Okay, it has started. If you want, you can keep it at foreground or you can move it to background. So that is what I keep on saying from the beginning. Okay, it will be, and it can be at different stages. That's it. Okay, so this is what first we call it as onStart command, and this is done with the help of, or it is invoked with the help of the start services. Okay, or start service. And second one is onBind. So this method invokes. Okay, the system invokes this method by calling the bind services when other component want to bind with the services, such as we perform a remote, there is the remote communication, okay, RPC. Okay, I said that we are going to connect with the help of internet, right? Okay, so that we do with the help of the bind services. And third one is on create. So the system invokes this method to perform one-time setup procedure when the service is initially created. Initially created means I'm going to open it for first time. Okay, so I'll use on create. So before it calls either on start command or on bind command. So we will be using on create whenever we are going to open for the first time. For the first time, I'm going to open that software or an APK file. So I'll be using on create. So this has to be called before we start on, that is the on start command or on bind command. Only after starting the on create, what we can do? We can call on start command and on bind command. After starting only, I can go for connecting to the internet. Okay, internet is something, but only after starting, you will open a page. After that only, you'll do login credentials, and then only you will validate with the server. After that only, the binding happens between the application, that is the client-side application and the server. So these are the way in which the flow happens. First create, after that start, after that bind. Okay, so this is the life cycle activity. You all know that. Just I'm recollecting whatever you already studied. And last one is on destroy. The system invokes this method when the service is no longer used and is being destroyed. Okay, so your service should implement this to clean up any resources such as threads, registered listeners or receivers. Okay, when I say destroy, it will destroy all the things. It can be of anything. it can be a thread. It is because thread is nothing but a piece of line or a code. Okay, with the help of that, it is nothing but like how we say unique primary key, like that. Each and every thread we are going to have it as a name. So with the help of that thread, what we are going to call a service. When I say call a service, it can be music, or it can be Gmail, or it can be WhatsApp, it can be anything. Okay, and this is the last call that the service receives. Okay, so that's why I said it is at the final when you're going to close it. So it is the last call that the service receives. Okay, that we call it as on desktop. So last call is nothing but the method. It is the last method that the service receives when we are at the closing state. Okay, and in between we have the on unbind and then on rebind. Unbind and rebind is another two things that we have here, and we'll discuss what is that. The system calls this method when all clients have disconnected from a particular interface published by the services. Okay, unbind is nothing but it got disconnected. Unbind is nothing but by meaning itself. It is disconnected from the particular interface published by the service. And then rebind. The system calls this method when a new clients have connected to the service after it had previously been notified that all has disconnected in the unbind intent. Okay, so it is not that you have an application, you know that. Okay, so either you can disconnect is something, but like you will take a Gmail as an again example. If you sign out that, it is not that always you are going to use the particular client side. It can be someone also can use that. Okay, either you can use the same interface and then log in, or some other may log in with the same interface. Like the interface nothing but the client side page I'm saying. Okay, at that case you'll be calling the rebind application. Okay, in that case it has to be notified that it has been already disconnected from the service. So for that only you could see some auto notification. So whenever you log out from the Gmail account, which email was logged out, that email you could see. That email that you could see. If you want, you can choose that email, and then you can give the corresponding password. You can log in. What we can do otherwise, we can simply log out. Okay, or you can choose the different account. Okay, if you don't want to log in with the same Gmail, what you'll do, you will type a new account. Okay, new Gmail account, and then you give the password for the new account, and then you log in. So that case it is similar to a rebind account, rebind action. Okay, and this diagram which we already shown. Okay, so here we can see the two methods. One is call to start service. Okay, this is the first method, and call to bind service. These are the two methods which are available. Call to start service and call to bind service. So what happens at start service, what happens at the bind service, we are going to discuss. Okay, so call to start service, how it happens, and call to bind service. If I'm going to bind the service, how this happens. If I'm going to start a service, how the start service happens. So that is what you're going to see. Okay, after starting, we're going to on create, will get any activated, and on start command. Okay, it means the service is running. After that, if I'm going to close, I'll be calling the on desktop method. If this desktop, what happens? The service will get shut down. Okay, when it is shut down, it is unbounded service. That's it. So this is what the start service, and finally it will end up with desktop or shutdown. When I come to the call to bind services, on create, after creating, you will be binding. Okay, now the clients are bound to the services. It means that now a connection will get established. Once you want to proceed, you will be proceeding, or you will be in the same state. Or once you decided not to proceed further, what you will be doing? You will be moving into unbind stage. After unbind stage, if you want to close that particular application, now it will move to on desktop. Unbinding is the web browser is still open, but the account alone disconnected. And if you want to close the application also, it will get destroyed. And finally, the service shut down. Okay, it is the bounded services, and that is finally we call it as this entire thing will get stopped off. Okay, so this we call it as bounded services, and this we call it as unbounded services, or I can say start service or bind service. Okay, when I say bind service, after starting a service, I'm going to bind. And here start the services, newly I'm going to start the service, and if I want, I can continue in the login stage. Otherwise, I can simply destroy it, and then I can close the application. Okay, so this is what the basic introduction for the two methods. One is start service and bind a service. And this dotted line, this dotted region, okay, this dotted region shows that it is the it is active lifetime of a particular application. Okay, here only it will be active. All these are the start methods. Okay, on create is nothing but it is stage before it is getting activated. And if you come to the bottom two portion, it is a stage after it is getting disconnected or it is getting closed. And the middle portion, we call it as always active lifetime method. Okay, here only always your application will be at live. Okay, and the service essentially takes the two states. The service essentially takes the two states. So one is started state and bounded state. That is what we discussed now. Started as well as bounded. I have shown you here, right? So this is the start the service and bound the service. So these two only I'm giving the explanation here in the form of a table. And I say it is a started. A service is started when application component such as starts an activity by calling the start service method. I have shown you, right? Just now I shown you in terms of the start service. So this is what we call it the start service. Okay. And next one is the bound service. That is the bind service. Bound is nothing but bind service. So just we have seen bind service here. Okay. So these are the two services which is needed. Okay. For a service to get initiated. It can be bounding a service or starting a service. Hope you understand the difference between starting and bounding. Starting is nothing but opening it for the first time. Bound is nothing but you have opened or you have started it. After starting, with the help of the internet, you are going to connect to a particular server. So now the binding happens between an application and the server of a particular application. If it is Gmail, if it is connected, it will be connecting to Gmail server. If it is WhatsApp, it is connected to WhatsApp server. Facebook, it is connected to Facebook server. Started is nothing but you are going to give username and password for the first time, and then you are going to log in. You just click the Facebook application, you open it, but you don't give username password. It is started. Once you clicked it, after that you give username and password, that is bound. Okay, so that is the two differences that we need to know here. Started and bounded. Okay, I hope you understood the difference between started and the bounded.
So,
Yes.
yeah, for start service, it says that even if it's destroyed, it still runs in the background. Is there any other way to like turn off completely, remove it from the background?
Sorry, I couldn't get what is that? Even it is at the background.
Like in the last slide, it says that even when it's destroyed in the even if, once it's destroyed, it will run in the background indefinitely, right? Even if the component is destroyed, right?
Yeah.
So how do you remove it from the background then? The server.
See, your application for you it will be disconnected, but something has to be okay. Some communication there between your operating system and then between your application, which is not needed for our service for our purpose.
Okay.
That will be running at the background, and that will take a restart or that will take some time to get disconnected. It is not abruptly it will get disconnected once you close the application.
Okay. All right, so understood.
Okay, that is what it is stated.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. The next one is creating a starter service. So we'll be doing now started. Now, since I said that there are two things or two states, started and bounded. So first we'll see how to start a service. Now we are going to deal with the starter services. Okay. Starter service, creating a starter service. So how to create a starter service, we are going to discuss now. So a starter service is one, okay, is the one that other component starts by calling the start service. So which results in a call the service or on start command method. With the help of this, we are going to on stop, we are going to start. Okay. So when a service is started, it has a life cycle that independent of the component that is started. Okay. So a service can run in background indefinitely, even if the component that is started are destroyed. Okay, that is what just question you asked, right? As such, the service would stop itself when the job is complete. You complete by calling stop self, or the component can stop it by calling stop services. Okay, these are the methods in which you can make it stop completely. once the job is fully done. Because one example, just one question here has asked it, right? So you may give simply sign out. Once it is sign out, it has to be automatically updated into your cache memory also, because somebody will be uh, just directly closing off. You will be directly closing off the particular Gmail. Maybe that is not voluntarily you will be closing. By unexpectedly, you will be closing off the particular like Google Chrome application. If you are working with Gmail, unexpectedly you may switch off also. That is, you may turn off also. So what you'll be doing? Immediately you will again open the Google Chrome, and then you may open the Gmail. If you open the Gmail, what happens? It will again log in, because based upon the timestamp, okay, it will be active for 4 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It should be always signed in. Like that, you may have some time period. So if you open the application within the particular time period, automatically the connection will get established. Okay, since it is already running at the background. For you, it may be closed, but still it will be run. The job is not complete for the operating system. It is not for you. For the operating system, it is not complete. Okay, so like that, there are many things will be running at the background. Okay? An application component such as an activity can start the service by calling the start service and passes an intent that specifies the service that include any data for the service to get used. Okay, and the service receives this intent on start command. Okay, so these are the main features for creating started service. We'll see some program so that you will understand easily. Since it is theory for learning for the first time, it might be a little bit confusing. So what I'm trying to say, when you go for some example, we'll definitely will understand. Okay. And this is the diagram for starter service. Whatever we've seen, I just have segregated, and then I'm showing it to you now. We have shown you both diagram commonly here. So call a start service on create command. We have shown you that. Just I have separated, and I'm showing it separately. That is the start service alone. Okay, so this is the Android activity. From that, you are going to start it. Okay, when I start, what happens? On create will get initiated, and then this is the life cycle. Entire time it will be like ideal. This is the active period. After that, when we close it, it will go to the desktop. Okay, so the service is running. It means the client dispatches intent of work. What you want to do? Okay, that is on start command. What you want to do, that will be done. You want to send a mail, or you want to discard a mail, or you want to save it as a draft, or you want to save it in your calendar. Whatever you want to do, everything will be done in the life cycle period. Okay, for a particular application. That application can be a WhatsApp or a Gmail, whatever it can be. Okay, after that, once you close it, it will go to stop service or stop self invoke. That depends upon the state in which I said, right? You may mistakenly switch it off, or you may interrupt, or you may close the application with a not proper procedure. Okay, since everything is running under cloud, there are many methods to be activated step by step. If it is running at your local, no problem. Since whatever services nowadays we use, like Gmail or Facebook or WhatsApp, all these are the services which are running on the cloud. So since it is running on the cloud, so you need to update your current status. Only then the status will get updated onto the cloud services. So that there are many methods that will get called according to the current status of your application. Further, only entire application will get stopped. Okay. And this is the extending the services class. So extending the service class. So what you can do, you can also extend the service class to handle each incoming intent. So here how a basic implementation might look. Okay, just an example for extending the service. If you want to extend the service, how this can be done. So what we do, a public class hello service is the class. We extend the service, extend the class service. Okay, here what we do, inside this only we write the code. We write a sample code. Okay, so this is how class can services can be extended. Okay, so we don't need to worry about the code as of now, because it is if we go to the code, it directly says the operation of a particular application. Just I'm not worrying about the operation of an application. I just want to show you the skeleton of a particular extended service class. Okay, so I think that what are the methods we use, that alone I'm explaining now. So we have used on create method for the first time. So it is given in the command, start up the thread running the service Note that we create a separate thread because a service normally runs in a process main thread, and we don't want to block. We also make it background priority, so CPU intensively work and does not disturb our UI. Okay, so whenever we're going to start a service, it will be started as a new separate thread, and then with the help of that, we'll be running either at the background or at the foreground. Okay, and also after create only, what we do, we go with on start command. After create only, we go with on start command, and then also we override all those. And next we go with the, and then we go with on bind. After this only, just on create. After that, we go with on command, or is on start command. After on start command, we go with the on bind. Okay, so this is the hierarchy I have shown you. After on bind, if you want, you can proceed, or you can be an active life cycle, or if you think you don't want, you can just go for destroy, and destroy is called with help of on destroy method. Okay, so this is how the hierarchy goes. So this is the outer skeleton, how to write a code. I'm just showing it to you. Okay, so first one will say with extending. Okay, extends the services, and okay, where we override an on create method and on start command, again we override it, and then we have the on bind method and then on destroy method. So this is what we shown in the diagram. So just I'm mapping the content with the diagram. You can see here start services on create, and then start command, and then we destroy method. Okay, so just I'm mapping the diagram with the coding part. Okay, so this is how to start a service. Okay, simply a service is nothing but an activity. Whatever, if I'm going to click a button, click an application, I call that as an activity. For that, what has to be done? Okay, if I want to decide what has to be done, first I want to know in which state the application is. Already it is active or it is not active. Okay, you need to categorize according to the life cycle of an Android. Life cycle of an Android application. So based upon that, we are going to decide what the application has to do next. So this is what we are learning in this introduction class. Okay. So if you have any doubt, you can ask. Otherwise, I'll stop up to this level, and we'll go to starting a service by next class. Okay, starting a service, we'll discuss by next class. As of now, we'll say this first part, creating a service alone, we'll discuss. Okay, as shown in this diagram, there are two things: starting a service or binding a service. Okay, first what we discuss is just created a service. We'll stop up to creating a service alone, as the time is going to be 2 o'clock. So I'll stop up to creating a service alone, and starting we'll discuss in next class. Okay, and if you have any doubt in this, you can ask me now. Otherwise, we can wind up our class.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So if there is no doubt, you can give your attendance, and then you can leave the class.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.